Hello everybody, my name is Margot Waldorf and I am the founder of the Change Awards, and I'm really pleased that you made it today to our session, which is a roundtable and conversation with the winners of the Change Awards 2024. We are particularly today focusing on the public sector. We've decided to split these sessions into two different sectors just to understand if there are any or any fundamental or tiny little differences between those, between how we are managing change across those two different sectors. Given some of the feedback that I have received in the past, I think that there are, but obviously let's find out from our winners. So before we start, I'm just going to just give you a few things really. So most importantly, we are definitely recording this session. You are more than welcome to keep your video on, but you do not have to do that. If you wanted to ask question, please do so at any time. You can either raise your hand, unmute yourself and start talking, or you can just pop the question into the chat box. I will be looking at the chat box and picking the questions from the chat box and obviously asking them to our winners. So hopefully interesting session for everybody today. And before we start, I also quickly wanted to say big thank you to our partners for the Change Awards 2024, the IN Group and SYSDOC. We have an IN Group representative today with us, and just so I ensure that people are aware of what the IN Group is. It's a company that consists of a lot of different mini companies, and one of them is IN Group, and I've been working with IN Group for quite a long time. They are a fantastic people partner. So I'll hand you over to Naomi quickly, and she can just introduce herself.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Margot. Really great to meet all of you. I'm Naomi, and to be on this call. So I'm representing the IN Group today. As Margot mentioned, we're one of the sponsors of the Change Awards and have been for a while. Love working with Margot and the Change Awards. We are a talent partner when it comes to change management, the change management community for recruitment, essentially across contract, consultancy and permanent roles. We do a lot of work across the public sector, particularly in the change and sort of technology change remit across the UK. So today I'm really happy to listen to into the call and really looking forward to hearing about the conversations that are going to be taking place today and hearing hopefully about your winning case studies. If there's anything anyone needs from me, I'm going to be here, so feel free to ask me a question. Hopefully I'll be able to answer it for you, or reach out to me at the end of the call. All right.
Fantastic. We will share the details later on with people at the end of the call, so people will have it easy. Okay, so moving on, I wanted to very warmly welcome the co-hosts of the session today, Jaren and Emin. They are both representing Ford Otosan, which is a Ford company based in Turkey, and they've all had quite an interesting careers in change management. So welcome, Sharon, welcome, Emin, and I'll hand you over I'll hand over the discussion to you.
Okay, thanks for introducing us, and we would like to welcome everyone. Today we will be together with Emin. We prepared some good questions and we will ask them to the group. It will be a good discussion, I hope. So thanks for introduction.
Hi all, it's Emin. I'm also excited to be part of this discussion alongside esteemed experts as we explore the challenges and opportunities of change management in such a complex environment as public sector. So I'm just giving the floor for Jaren for her opening question.
All right,
fantastic. So, and just before, I forgot about this slide really. which is the most important slide of today, which is that just to welcome our winners of the Change Awards. So we've got Melanie Charlton representing UK Home Office, we've got Claire and Sarah Morrison, interestingly, representing the University of Glasgow. So David Foster, that's probably something for you to take a note of. And Suzanne Lovell from the BBC, which is obviously the most important TV here in the UK. So lovely, lovely, lovely to have you all, and I appreciate that you have made the time of your day to participate in this session. Sharon, giving it back to you. I think you are on mute. Yeah, there you go.
I just waited, maybe someone would say something. Otherwise, yes, let's start with the questions. Like, it will be something very generic, the first one. And as I said, we will be asking the questions to all the winners, whoever wants to answer can answer it. The first one is, although, I mean, we know in our country, especially in Turkey, it's very hard to introduce and be present in the community as change management experts. So I know it's maybe a little bit maybe easier in your country, but still, we want to learn what inspired you to pursue this award. I mean, what motivated you to seek recognition in the field of change management with this award?
Who wants to start?
I don't mind starting, Susan.
Please.
Here. Hi. That's a great question. My background is as a journalist, Seren, and that's just a great question because that's quite an unexpected question. So my answer is I didn't want to apply. I had no interest in applying. I didn't think it was a good idea. I don't want any recognition. However, I had a team who said, you know what, why don't you look at the criteria? And I have to say, the thing I loved about what you looked for was you asked us to describe what we learned. And then I was like all in, because I'm not trying to say we're fabulous, we've done it great, look at us. There's nothing more annoying, I have to say, than listening to other people who've had like £1 million to spend on change. And they say, we did this and we appointed that. And you think, yeah, great. I'd be successful if I had £1 million too. I've got no money and no people. So that's what I loved about this, and I thought was quite unusual. And Margot, hats off to you. It was encouraging us to really interrogate what we were doing. And so I kind of laughingly said, oh, I think I'm going to win that because it's about what mistakes you've made. And I've just written down all my mistakes. So I thought that was just a brilliant way of bringing a group of people together to help them feel energized. Wonderful to be recognized. That was great. But it wasn't like we were saying, look at us, we're fab, because that's not what this is. As you know, journey of change, really tough. You have to be so resilient. Nobody gives you the budget you need. You don't get the people you need. And I felt that being able to describe how you grow a movement from scratch was an honest story. And so I really enjoyed the whole process, and I really didn't expect to.
Yeah, great.
Great answer, Susan. Anybody else from our...
I'm happy to jump in next. So I originally didn't think of applying to the Change Awards for myself. So Sarah, who's also on the call, is one of my team members, and I originally applied or nominated Sarah and one of my other team members for the Change Awards for a lot of the work that they'd really been doing within the university. I'm quite eager to do like lots of collaboration, and that's really part of some of the university values. So originally I really looked at the Change Awards and was really excited around some of the categories and had nominated them, and then in doing so and kind of sharing that around our wider team, then my manager actually really encouraged me to then put forward something for myself. And really, again, just to Susan's point as well, actually what my nomination focused on part of was around really kind of, there was a couple of aspects where we made mistakes and done things wrong and how we turned that around. And so it's really just around, it was encouraged to do that around sharing that and building as well up that that relationship with like different change managers as well. It was a really great opportunity to start to build that network more as well.
And remind me, I think you actually have picked up 2 awards, right? You came on the stage twice, Claire.
No, so I did go on the stage twice. Unfortunately, Sarah was unwell on the day of the awards, so I was there picking up Sarah's award and my own. So I did get to walk around with 2 awards on the night and feel super important.
Yeah, I was waiting patiently by the phone to find out what was happening. I was so sad that I didn't get to come, but from my perspective, just the actual process that when you write your case study, it was so valuable. You know, see, even just reading that back, that was a confidence boost in itself. So I would say to anybody, like, just go for it. Just take a piece of work that you're proud of and reflect on it. And it's just such a valuable process. So when I was shortlisted, I was just so shocked and delighted and just kind of like, oh, well, that's good enough, you know, but I have to admit that on the night, you're just like so excited. And then when Claire did text, I'm just so thankful and thankful to have won. And thanks to you, Margot, and just thankful for the opportunity, really, like just to reflect and just a really worthwhile exercise, I would say. So yeah, we're always encouraging people just to go for things that, and it puts you out your comfort zone sometimes, having to reflect on the things that you've done well. But yeah, so thank you.
It's a pleasure. I can see Melanie is still joining audio. I think, Melanie, I'm not sure. We can see your face. There you go. Oh, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, separately. Yeah.
Perfect. So the question, I think, I'm not sure if you've heard the question. Jaren, do you mind repeating it, please? So then Melanie can reflect as well.
Yeah, of course. I would like to learn what inspired you to pursue this award. What motivated you to seek recognition in the field of change management while applying to this award?
Oh, we've lost your voice now. Are you on mute?
And maybe she's muted. Yeah, she's muted, I guess. Okay. Right now we can.
Can you hear me now?
Can't hear you, yes.
Okay, so I think my inspiration for this really was the effort and hard work of the 160 change managers that I worked with. This was about blending all of the practices, the frameworks, the methodology of change managers, which is what made it particularly exciting, because they know the pitfalls, they understand, you know, what good looks like, how it should be done properly. So, and I absolutely encourage every single one of them, either collectively or individually, to go for the awards themselves as well. There's the passion. The Home Office, we do really hard, heavy, wonderful work. We've got some really passionate people, lots of passionate people. And I think just raising the profile of both change awards, change management, and the effects and the improvements that we bring to, you know, all of the people that we work with. I think that's why we're so passionate about going for the award for myself and the team, all the 160 people that we work with. You know, essentially that was why, just to bring it to the focus and, you know, raise the profile of business change.
Yeah, great.
Great. Thank you, Melanie. I just heard that all our award winners have mentioned about the mistakes, complexities, and the people they are dealing with. So I wonder, how did you ensure the stakeholder engagement and support through this transformation process? I am quite sure you have a lot to tell us. So how did you manage this stakeholder engagement and support from them?
I'm happy to jump in.
Jump in, Melanie.
Okay, only because I've got the phone still open. I think for me it was very much about curiosity. I said, you know, of those 160, probably 30 were senior change leads. I knew some of them, I didn't know others. So it was very much about that curiosity, about getting to know them getting to know me, but particularly what the practices, what frameworks they use, so that I could really kind of pick on. See, there's an awful lot that's similar here. Yes, we diverge on some bits. Yes, there are little nuances that are different, but actually really creating that collaborate together. Let's see what we can do together, given we're not that far apart with each other. So I think that was always what it was, that curiosity and that what can we make, everyone's lives improved and better.
Yeah. How about you, Susan?
Yeah, mine was quite a different approach actually, because there's so many stakeholders, because the piece of work that we're doing is about culture and behaviours, and everybody's an expert, aren't they? Because we all have behaviours. And so there are so many stakeholders and so many directions of travel. The approach I landed on was really to get an upfront agreement at quite a high level, and then reassure enough senior stakeholders that we knew what we were doing, with a couple of killer case studies, small pilots that had worked, to let them leave us alone to go and play. That was my strategy, and that was partly born of necessity, because didn't have the infrastructure to run it as a big Excel spreadsheet, didn't have any people to do detailed reporting, wanted to be able to try things and fail and not be hauled over the coals. So I have to say that takes a lot of energy, but to get the thing over the line, it took me probably a year to get real sign off to say, yeah, that's a good approach, go and do. But once I got that, then I could go off and do what we needed to do with regular people who are the agents of change. So that was hard and quite counterintuitive for change management, a different way of doing it. Takes longer, but you embed it more. So yeah, that was kind of a different to the traditional approach, maybe.
Definitely.
I'll jump in next. So for me, I think one of the key things is, particularly when you're engaging your stakeholders, is knowing your audience is the most important thing. So when we've looked at delivering our kind of changes, we have had to be quite adaptable with our stakeholder approach. So it's really about knowing the audience, but also recognising when it's not working. So taking back to those mistakes, we had to move really quickly in delivering some stakeholder engagement communications on one of our projects, and actually they were not as engaging as we wanted them to be, and being able to actually then recognise that and change that really quickly, I think is one of the key things that as change managers we need to be really open to, is to continue to measure what works and to make sure that actually we're learning all of the time and we're working based on every project is different, everybody feels different about it, and so actually not continuing to make assumptions and really build on that and know who you're working with, particularly when it comes to senior leaders, as well as know what your ask of them is, because the communication that you're having with them not only has to tie around really what we want to get out of it, but what we need them to do and how we need them to contribute, because often they're the ones that are leading the message for us as change managers. Sometimes that we're not the people that folk want to listen to, and so it's really important that when we're doing that stakeholder engagement and communication, that we've got really clear asks of those people so that they can actually engage, and that we're not really just telling them things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I come in as well, just on the topic of that. There's a question about how we can learn from mistakes and under public scrutiny and the scrutiny of our stakeholders. And I would say that we're really lucky in the university in that our senior leadership team are very focused and supportive of change and invest in it. And we are we're always finding our feet, and it's not always easy in our particular environment, which is we're world changing, but we're also an ancient university, so there's lots of challenges, and those challenges are acknowledged. So I think it's just, as Claire says, we're really reflective and we're always evaluating whether the approach works or whether it doesn't. But when it doesn't, we're very upfront about it and we will come with a solution. This isn't working, here's what we propose. And thankfully, we're usually very supported in that. And we usually, yeah, it's just a part of it. We're always working in an agile way and coming up with solutions and very open to the proposed solution not being the right one initially, and just always working from there. But yeah, I would say that having the support and the acknowledgement from a higher level that change is quite difficult in our particular environment, and so that's how we manage mistakes.
Absolutely. So thanks for answering the question from the Bindu from the chat. So
We have some
we have
questions in the chat.
yeah.
So we have a question for Susan, actually. There you go. It might be difficult. I don't know. But the question is, how might you advise about how we can learn from mistakes in a political, I think, environment with public scrutiny? That's a very difficult question, by the way.
Yes, and obviously when you speak on behalf of an organisation like the BBC or an ancient university, you're mindful all the time. You're holding that reputation in your hands. You represent that brand. You're not separate from it in any way. And I think that goes without saying, but maybe worth saying. I think I've found using the organisation's values as an underpinning framework for whatever we want to do or say about change is a really good safety net, but also a framework for how you might operate. And so, for instance, if we say that we're accountable, we have to say that we own up to mistakes. That's part of our values. If the BBC can't be trusted to tell the truth, and that means how we speak to each other, not just what we put in the news, then we're not going to be a trusted organisation. We have no brand value. So I tend to reduce it right down to the fundamentals and take it from there. I think there's some basic, decent human values that you want to embody as a change manager, i.e. you're decent, honest, you speak the truth, but you do it in a way that's acceptable at the right time. You don't be that pain in the arse person, excuse my French, who is disrupting all the time when the mood is not right. You try to become a professional who embodies the values of your organisation. And then that means that you do have permission, I think, to be the person who says, oh, I think this is not working. And if you do it in keeping with the values of your organisation, it's hard to go wrong, I think. If you come in as a sort of flashy, I know it all, and I'm the change manager, and this is not, I just think that the spirit of that it will get you some distance, but won't lead to the transformational change you want, because really what you want is an organisation that's able to change itself. You don't want to have to be a crucial part of the business. You're there as a guide, you're a counsellor, you're a consultant in the best way. So I think truth, honesty, and the underpinning values of the organisation is the way that I would do admitting to mistakes. And, you know, we've all had to do lots of that.
That's great. That's a really good summary, actually, because I think some of the values that you've just mentioned, I think they should be applicable all over, not only in the public sector.
Indeed.
But
yeah, they're good human values.
Just good old standard human values. There is also additional question to everybody around the maturity of change. So what do people think in terms of maturity of change across your organizations? How does it look like at the moment?
I would say I've worked only at the university now for about 2.5 years, but I've worked in a number of organisations within the private sector as well. And I actually think that, yes, people or companies and organisations are starting to think of change from a culture aspect more now, as well as just a programme and project level, because the volume of change that is happening within organisations, even just to keep up with technology, with and changes in the kind of the macro levels, where actually just changes that are outside the impact organisations, means that actually there's so many changes that are going on at one time within an organisation that we are needing to build cultures of change rather than looking at change just on that individual perspective. And I think I think personally for the university, that's quite a difficult journey for an institution that is 500 years old, but one that they're really committed to doing and building. So it's really exciting to be a part of that. But I do think that is seen across a number of organisations, and certainly the ones that I've been that I've worked in over the past 10 years.
I think there's maybe
Anybody
been
else?
I wonder if there's maybe been a bit of a shift over the past couple of years. Margot, you must have detected that as well, from something in the background to something that really is has a professional standing, is brought more into the room, is able to help shape the people side of change alongside the spreadsheet side of change. And as you were saying, Claire, able to read the mood of how is this actually landing? It looked good on paper. It looked great on paper, and the savings over here were fab, but it's not working. And I think it's a good indicator of the maturity of an organisation. Do they have a workable change management process, or is it just, you know, the last person who was in did it, but there's no actual systemic approach? And I've certainly seen an opening up and a loosening of that in the BBC, and it's become a much more appreciated professional set of competencies, and also something that people aspire to add to their CV, which I think is fab. See, Joy's got her hand up. Joy, I'm not sure if it's...
Yeah, it was me, and it was my question. Thank you. It was brilliantly answered by both of the people so far. And I'm just curious because I think I'm somebody who's worked on pretty big change programs, actually for the Home Office, not directly employed by them, but in the emergency services. And with both of the projects or the programs I worked on, what's unraveling really is that change hasn't been embedded. So work was done and a great amount of effort was put in, but actually with those programs, I'm talking over the last 10 years really, you know, what I think looking in from the outside, I can see is, you know, even though we tried to do that at the time, I don't think change management was a thing that people recognized. And I'm also curious because now I'm looking at other opportunities and contracts for work and whatever, and people are saying, oh, they want, you know, a really experienced change manager with 10 or years experience. And I just sort of think, how realistic is that? In, you know, there wasn't a job description of change manager probably even 3 or 4 years ago, you know, let alone 5 or 10 years ago. So I'm just, yeah, I'm intrigued as to whether organisations are being realistic enough about how they describe what they're looking for, because I think a lot of people, especially project and programme managers like myself, have done a huge amount of change as best we can within the environment we were working in at the time. So thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, I
Joy,
think that's
I'm
great...
happy to come in part of, certainly not on behalf of the Home Office, but the area that I work in, the Home Office, there's 20,000 people, we have 13 million customers. So we, you know, it is reasonably mature where I work. We've been looking at change management and having it embedded for probably about 7 years now. And every program, every project that gets stood up is very much, you know, where's the business change manager? Who is it? What, you know, what they're going to do. So from that level of maturity, I'd say we've cracked it. But I think in terms of maturity, we really are kind of there with it. The piece of work that I've been doing for the last 6 months is very much around the strategic change management. So it's bringing the early part of what is the strategy that's going to be built. Actually, how do we bring that people lens into the room when the strategy is being kind of considered, what that solution is about, and then bringing it in through design, rather than here's the design, here's the piece, go and deliver it. So starting on that element of maturity. And I think the point about, you know, embedding and adopting, having that sort of sustained change, yes, I think that's still probably a challenge that we want to kind of crack and work through a bit more, because night resource does mean that we have to, you know, change managers then move to the next piece of work, and then there is that element that the business may just seek its old ways rather than really truly have it embedded and adopted and sustained for the long term.
I would say also, sorry, just like in terms of Margaret, you mentioning even just in a year or two, how things have changed and how different they are. I would say that Claire, you'd probably agree that there's been such a difference in where we started. Like we came in as change being embedded in projects, and initially there was possibly a bit of skepticism about where we fit and what the offering was, and I would say that quickly it became, we became very in demand and valued, and people started to see what it is that we could offer, which led to more identifying more sort of documented processes and the people aspect of projects. And so I would say that that has led to change in particular becoming really quite valued within the transformation area. And we've got change frameworks that involves the whole organisation, organisational development partners coming in. As Claire was saying, we're branching out, and we've got who will be focused on training and training change management to everyone, and we've got lots of like training activities for the whole university in terms of change, and also our review system that every staff member must go through. There's lots of things that at the end of the year, you have to show that you've been involved in and aligned with the values and the strategic aims of the organisation. And it just so happens that the change and innovation and transformation programme is part of that. So we find there's people who are really keen in the organisation to get involved as subject matter experts, and they want to know more in the change network. And yeah, I would say there's we've got an automation programme. People are putting themselves forward for changes in their area and where they see they could bring improvement. So I would say that it's definitely changing, and I would say that we've noticed a huge improvement over the last couple of years. So.
It's so interesting hearing all those things, Sarah, that you're listing off, because that would be our experience too. I think to sort of make it really practical then, one of the ways of seeing that the organisation is beginning to take it seriously is actually, as you say, there's a change framework. We redid all our documentation, which seems a very basic thing, but moved it from 85 different documents to 12, I think. You make it real into a thing. A change community that meets every month with speakers. There's a change professionals network, so that's all the people who actually have got a qualification also meet. So slowly but surely you're sort of building that recognition without having to do it at the sharp end always in the most busy projects. You're sort of building the movement for change. And I have found just a great deal of enthusiasm, which you can then deploy when things get difficult or you need help. So that's been very useful. It sounds like you're doing very similar things, similarly building it into people's objectives and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So individually, those things are not huge, but actually they're sort of real, they're tangible. I think the difficulty is just talking about change. For most people, it's like, what are you talking about? But if you say, well, look, there's a document here, and actually in the process, there's this process called people in change. And these tools that you could actually use before you build your Excel spreadsheet. People really appreciate that. You've done 85% of the work for them.
Absolutely, yeah, and we've been working on our change framework. Claire, you could probably speak about that, but over 2 years, we had one initially and we didn't think it was the right one. So just recently we've had the luxury of time to sort of go over it and really find something that works. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it actually relates quite well back to the additional question that you'd asked, Joy, or kind of proposed around actually what we focused on in this. So within the university, we've revisited and revamped our change framework, or we are looking at that at the moment. And what we're really looking to do is focus more on the readiness and transition of change, and to really support that embedding. So really looking at actually how do we focus on the adoption and embedding? What does that look like? What are our adoption plans? Often we really focus on benefits. But benefits very different from adoption, and actually it's not always the same measures. And therefore we want it's really important that where possible we look at ways in measuring actually, are people following the process that we want them to follow? Are they doing the new thing, and are we not just tracking benefits on their own? How are we supporting people as when we launch something new? How are we supporting people in that journey of change, and how are we providing that support and being responsive to that, to give them what they need and making sure that they're supported? And actually it's very difficult because often as change, and it's something that we're tackling within our new framework around it, is actually sometimes, and what I've found in other organisations, and even before, is sometimes the change managers were brought in late, and then when the change is ready to be delivered, you're moved on to something else, because resources are tight and most organisations are really wanting to focus on the delivery of things that they think will bring benefits. But it's really important that we continue to focus on that after part, because the realisation of benefits is really in that adoption piece.
Yeah, Margot, I mean, there is a question on the obstacles, and I had a question in my mind about resistance. So I just thought maybe we can combine the two questions and ask the winners what were the resistance part in your organization regarding this change management and all the work you are doing. I know it's a bit eating up your energy and your mood sometimes when you face with it, and you sometimes feel that you failed, but still you go on, continue. So what were the resistance moments while you were going through this?
So for as we mentioned, we're a university that's over 500 years old, and actually there are lots of different processes. So within the university, we have 4 different colleges that have, different strategies of their own, different leadership, and actually do things very differently, and for good reason. We have the College of Medical Veterinary Life Sciences versus the College of Arts. You can understand why they might need to do things differently, but that creates a real challenge for us in understanding the landscape that we're working with, and what our change means to different people. And actually, as you can imagine, that does build a bit of resistance. With it being over 500 years, lots of our processes have evolved naturally, and based on the need of what's happened at the time. But that means that we've got lots of different processes going on for trying to get the same outcomes, and actually that is a huge challenge for us on an ongoing basis. But actually it's something that, again, the university recognises and is looking to chat to start working on through a service excellence programme. So I think that in itself is part of our transformation. It will help our other transformation projects and actually change projects across the university by standardising some of those processes, by providing that alignment across some areas of the university. It's a bit easier. But I think as well, because of those differences in those different strategies, then it's actually difficult sometimes to have a change where, communications that are one size fits all. So that can mean, as a change manager, that actually really need to understand what does that mean for each area, and that can sometimes mean doing lots of communications or lots of different things, but tailored to each area. And so I think that can be a bit of a challenge for us, especially when things are moving quite quickly, and it's trying to build that that kind of personable piece in there.
I'll maybe pick up all the things you said, Claire. I think are absolutely true. The other thing I would observe about obstacles and difficulty is something about this ability to read the mood of an organization, regardless of the great plan you had. And if I look back now at the last 3 years, I can see that so clearly, and it's subtle. And if you're not sitting on the top table, it's hard to see, but you have to get really good at that and not take it personally. I had a wonderful mentor who very sadly passed away of COVID during the COVID crisis, called Mi-Yan Chung Judge, who wrote one of the big chunky documents or books rather on organizational development, really inspirational. She was brilliant. And she always used to say, Susan, you need to develop a creative indifference to the outcome. And it was just such a powerful idea, which is, you know, a bit like, I don't know, setting up a wedding or a party. You create the conditions, but you know what, if the guests don't want to have a good time, that's their thing, not yours. And I actually really had to work quite hard, because some of the work is very hard and it takes ages. But I now describe it as surfing the wave. If you see the wave coming, and you've got to be plugged into your organization to see them, what is the thing that the board is thinking about, which you didn't even know was coming? What is the flavor? What's the thing they have to show? Can you surf that wave? Let's say it was, I don't know, sustainability, and that's not in your thing. We'll get on that wave and surf it. So that would be, and I think then how much energy have you got to surf how many waves? And then when you don't have any energy to do that, go and do something else. But yeah, that would be my learning.
My experience from obstacles and therefore perhaps resistance, tension of just the change load and the demand of pace. I think certainly, Claire, I think you've covered as well. But, you know, that really is tension there, because work with, you know, the programs, Home Office critical programs, that they all need to be delivered to balance that with the totality of change that you're asking of the individuals themselves, whilst they have, you know, these huge requirements to deliver to the public and for our, you know, our ministers and our politicians. So where we can, we really do try, you know, to combine and coalesce around one change for a business area, so that we can really try and bring those together and minimise the impact, minimise resistance, so that actually the smooth transition for all of those programs is achieved. That's really quite difficult, because of the tensions of the programs and the people involved. But that's something we do where we possibly can, really try and bring those together, so it just reduces the impact.
Anybody else, or I will direct another question? No. So you have all mentioned about the, you know, the importance of the capturing the strategic priorities of the environment in which we operate. So I wonder, looking ahead, what do you believe it's the biggest challenge for the change leaders in the public sector, and how can they best prepare for it?
Another great question.
Very difficult question. Oh my goodness.
It's a really good one. Shall I have a go?
Go for it. Yes.
I'm thinking of you, Emin, where you're living, what the environment is like, how the world is changing, the change in the norms of our expectations of what it is to live and work in anywhere in the world, whether that is about war or discontent. I was reading this morning, I think it's a Gallup poll of engagement. I think it's the UN well-being. 10% of people across the world are engaged in their employment and feel good about it, 10%. So I think we have these unbelievable privileges, would be my view, unbelievable privileges and responsibilities. I'm speaking very public sector now, aren't I? You can see why I work for the BBC, but I do believe that we have unbelievable advantages and responsibilities, and that we're accountable for the people and the planet. And I think the future of work has got to be sustainable in a way that is in keeping with keeping our world alive. and making sure that we can continue to tell the truth. I don't know if you followed any of the disinformation at all. I mean, overnight, let me give you an example. The idea that Biden created the storm and targeted Republican areas. Now you can kind of laugh, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of what's misinformation in the world. BBC set up a huge unit called BBC Verify, which is not just a quick fact check. It is literally helping the world navigate what's true and what's not. So I think the challenges are probably some of the greatest that we've ever faced, and that actually brilliant change managers who are honest and good at what they do are going to be absolutely at a premium because the world is changing so fast. So that's my very BBC answer, but I do genuinely think we have a mission, and that it's sort of brilliant. This kind of thing where you just hear other people who've popped up in their organizations trying to do the same thing, I think is kind of wonderful. And Margaret, I really appreciate being able to do that in a public sector setting as well, because I think people understand the particular pressures. But it might be useful at some point to do a joint. I'll be just really interested to hear how that translates in private sector challenges. That might be just a really interesting thing at some point, which I would love to hear.
Why not? We might do something like that. But I think the whole notion, if I can just interject for a second, the whole notion of people, profit, planet, I think it's quite visible across. So, you know, we as the Change Awards, we also decided to start introducing that because we can see that that is happening. This is the demand for project management expertise. This wasn't there a couple of years ago, so that's a new thing, and it's definitely being led by the private sector. Just as an FYI.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you.
I would agree with you, Susan, just on that, in the terms of that kind of collective responsibility that goes beyond the organisation itself when you work in that public sector environment, and I think that really does tie into a lot of the kind of strategies and things that we do, particularly in the university. We're a research focused university, and so a lot of that kind of goes all the way out to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and really focusing on that that global response, even up to global responsibility. And so I think that with the way, with lots of political, the other things going on across globally just now, I think that does have an impact on the different strategies that leaders take within the public sector. And I think more so they have a huge reputational piece to make sure that they are doing the best for the institution that they work for, and that actually that they're maintaining the reputation of that institution as well. And so I think that there's a lot of things to consider as they prioritise the changes and things that they take forward within an organisation.
Oh, I mean, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. There's one question from the chat. If anybody else wants to answer my question, there was a question in the chat. Maybe we can address them to our.
Sorry, bear with me. I'm just picking it up. So Dick Givey, I'm truly sorry if I am mispronouncing your name, is saying, in my experience, public sector is more structured and less flexible. So one of the issues could be the mindset. But at the same time, like Susan has said, with structured organizations comes more ownership. That's an interesting view. Would anybody like to comment on that? So it's a mindset versus structure, I suppose the question. I'm not sure. Dick, Vijay, would you like to perhaps expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Hi. Yeah, we can hear you.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for taking this up. This was just an observation. I have worked with the public sector organization in India. And like Claire has also been saying that with structure organization or public sector, there is a high sense of ownership that resonates across the state of the organization. And I'm not saying that that is not seen in the private sector, but we have structure views, and there are some policies and practices in place. So that way I was connecting it with the mindset.
Yeah, if I could, I'm happy to pick up on that. I think you're absolutely right. I think mindset work and creating change are one and the same things. And it's about how you cleverly make it mindset work without telling the senior executive that you're trying to do mindset work with them. So it's all about stealthy management, because of course what you are trying to do is shift behaviors and understanding about change. So this is where the change management has moved from it being simple project management to really understanding people and people's experience. And in my experience, that has to come from the top. And you can do an awful lot of building your movement, but if you don't get that endorsement from the top, it's impossible. It is impossible. So I totally agree. And how do you introduce that then to a team of people who perhaps don't think there's anything wrong, or think they've been appointed because their mindset is kind of perfect? We're all works in progress. So I think the challenge there is, how do you manage senior stakeholders so that they're not just the tick box people saying, thank you very much, you made those changes, but that they embody the change that you want to make. And I suppose my best tip on that would be, I tend to work, if I can get 10% of any group, 10% of any group on board, so that might be one person on a board of 10, to be a co-designer with me, or a co-opter, or an early change agent, or do a pilot. I'm a great believer in the power of the pilot. Pretty much everything I've ever done, I've just called it a pilot, and then people let you do it. And then if it doesn't work, you say, isn't that great, that data that we got from that pilot? Because we were really hoping we would learn something. So I think you can't shy away from tackling mindset at the most senior level. And it is really tricky, but there are little ways that you can get started.
I would say just as well, I totally agree, Susan, in terms of like the staff at a lower level as well. I think the honesty piece is just so important. I would say that in terms of shifting mindset, which we managed to achieve, Claire, more so on a project that involved timetabling, that required a cultural change and a change in behaviours. And the way that we did that was just by being really, really honest, like bringing people along with it. And it actually surprised me how much the mindset did shift, just because we were just so very honest about why we needed to do this and why we needed people to change. There was no dressing it up. There was no, we have the privilege of being a public sector organisation. The great thing about that is that we have sort of good conditions, attractive conditions for staff. We're a financially healthy university. Staff generally have we have a sort of democratic approach. Most people have a say in how things are done. So we really need to appeal to how people will want to come with us, kind of thing. We can't impose it's not the culture for us to come in and say, you must do this. We need to bring them, what hearts and minds have to be brought on board in our project. And the way that we probably do that is through just being very honest where we can. And I think there's probably a shift in mindset generally. I would say even lay people realise that with things like AI coming in, we've got automation, the world is changing at a really fast pace, and there is a bit of a shift in mindset. People are more just aware and accepting that these things are going to change, and changes to processes. And thankfully, the way that we do it is to free up people's time to have more space to do the meaningful work, rather than being bogged down with, we're not trying to eliminate jobs, we're just trying to focus in on tasks that could be done in a way that's a bit more efficient. And we are so we're privileged in that sense, that people do have trust, and just there's lots of ways that we can sort of tactically get that buy-in. So yeah, I'd say mindset in terms of like the honesty piece and bringing people with you. Sorry, I waffled there.
So then what you just said really resonates. I think the piece about sort of honesty and trust. Be authentic. I really feel as a change manager, that authenticity for people, being really clear what is changing and what, you know, what a kind of conversation to be had about that. There's no input, but actually what about that change can, what can have input from others. And I think that authenticity is so vital for people. So there is that clear for them about, you know, coming, what you know, what is without out of their control, or you know, actually what part is within their control. And I hope from a mindset perspective, really help build that resilience, inclusivity. So I think that's for me is about the mindset is just really having that culture of resilience. And that, you know, like most organizations, we are a transforming organization.
Yeah.
We need to transform. That isn't a we'll do that and we will be done.
Yeah.
Like so many organizations, permanent cycle. And I think that would help with the mindset, just the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the project that I'm speaking about, we had very involved sponsors from the senior management team who were very visible throughout in communications, and it gave like credibility. They themselves were extremely honest in the way that they addressed staff. So that just gave it a bit of credibility they could trust, because it was directly coming from the people who were sponsoring the project. So, but yeah, no, I do agree. Authenticity is definitely probably the key to that.
There's one more question in the chat box, but before I move on to that question, just to say quickly, thank you to Susan for being with us. She unfortunately needs to drop off in a few minutes. It was lovely having you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
For enriching our conversations today. Thank you, kindly. All right, so we have another question from Joy. Well, there's actually two questions. Is there a double challenge for public sector bodies because they have an operational leadership to convince, but also the governing bodies to convince? And the second question is, how did the winners approach engagement with the governing bodies?
I think
Did we have any project? Sorry.
I was just going to jump in to say I think that'll be dependent on what you're doing, and whether any governing bodies do need to be brought in and engaged. On the kind of past couple of things that we've done, there's not necessarily been that level of engagement with governing bodies to think, but it is something that actually, as we go through change, we do need to have a look at who our external stakeholders are and think about a particular engagement plan for them as well. And it might not be governing bodies; it might be other stakeholders as well.
I would just say, so work in progress, and I would say your board or your external board or your external governing body or internal is your really important compliance and governance. They give you that framework, but also that can be incredibly useful when you need to get stuff done, because you need some external framework to make sure it is deliverable, so you can use it strategically. And I think my own view is it's better to do that once you can show some progress and more to do, rather than go with a blank sheet of paper. So much better to go to a governing body and say, here's our direction of travel. And also they are key in helping unlock some of the more maybe political factors or resource things that might get stuck. So I think they are a friend of change. Why would they not be? And rightly, they'll hold you to the highest standards, and that's always hard. And just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody on the call. It's been a real pleasure and really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope to hook up with you again. Thanks ever so much.
Thanks so much.
Susan.
Thanks so much. Handing it back to you, Emin and Jaren.
Yes, yeah, while we were listening to all the information that is flowing, I was just thinking if there is any surprising lessons that they have learned throughout their change management journey that they were not expecting when they started their career as a change manager maybe, but then they learned it while they are working and they would like to share.
My personal experience here would be very much, I completely understand and recognize resistance. Sometimes, it's slightly underestimated, particularly from a culture change. With any type of change I do, we always look from what's the people lens more than even if it's simple, not simple, but, maybe a new process, a new system, and from the people and what it might mean to them as individuals from a behaviour and culture perspective. I think I've sometimes thought I've underestimated quite how much cause resistance from people beyond what I would have expected. Sometimes that's something I really just have to try and build in, that this is going to take longer. Very often any change, the expectation from a governing body or from the change sponsor is that, the pace needs to be really, really quick. When you have people involved, which, all changes do, people, when we're talking about teams, in our case, we're talking about teams of, 500,000 people, 1,000 opinions, that's 1,000 worries, that's 1,000 fears, 1,000 voices. And that through and really help, all of those individuals come on that journey. It can derail, or it has a propensity to derail. So it's very much about having time. We've got to build in that time. That would be from me.
Thank you, Claire. So, anyone else? Sorry. If not, I just want to mention a topic that came up recently during the ACMP masterclass. It was quite interesting, and they are just talking about how much of your time do you allocate for pre-implementation activities and post-implementation activities such as sustainment efforts. I wonder the winners, how they allocated their time usually for pre-implementation activities and post-implementation activities. The reason why I'm asking question is the behavioral science suggests focusing on more on the post-go live phase to reinforce sustainability, to make sure the sustainment of the change. And first, I wonder, how do you allocate your time, and what are your thoughts on this?
So within the university, we have a transformation delivery team that we work with, and actually we have a real focus within that transition space and that post implementation piece. So within our roles and what we do is we start at the very beginning of the project. So it's difficult to say, how much time do you spend doing that, because actually sometimes that from project kickoff to launch can actually be a really long time. And so being involved from the beginning and actually building that up is really, really important. And what we look to try and do, or what we're looking to try and build in and embed more, is that actually starting at the beginning, looking at those lessons learned from previous deliveries. So taking straight from that what we've learned from those kind of post-implementation pieces and starting off really thinking about what are really thinking about in the early stages, what did we know about delivery last time that impacted us that we can start thinking of straight away. So actually we have a focus on post-implementation straight from the beginning, and actually we build up over time. There is a huge focus on readiness and go no go, but also making sure that we've got that kind of implementation support and hypercare or anything that we need really to make sure that our colleagues are supported when change is delivered. And so that hypercare, that implementation period, I think we don't necessarily have a time limit on it. It's really about making sure that we can drive that embedding and that we're working with the business to realise those benefits and that we don't really just deliver and drop. So it's really difficult to put a time frame on those and do you spend more on one stage or more on the other. But I think it's actually that post-implementation piece and that adoption or an embedding of the change is really important. So actually the stuff that you're doing in the readiness should be preparing for that stage is really intrinsic, and therefore it's the thinking that's happening before you get there is also really focusing on that as well. Hope that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah.
Noticed in the sidebar that Mandy Oliver has put the point about often changes about to be embedded, project teams just are moved on to the next thing, and I absolutely concur with that. That again, it's attention, it's finite. There's so much work to be done. I think what we've done in the Home Office is we have what we call operational change managers. And we have those within the business areas that are, adopting the change, accepting the change. The idea being that actually when operation change managers move on to the next piece, individuals are still embedded. They're working to ensure that the change is sustained. There's more to be done there because they have, gained quite a large volume of change load. That's the sort of intent of the model at the Home Office that we employ those individuals so that they are not moved on, that they are there to really helping to sort of nurture the ongoing ability and adoption of that change.
Thank you. Jaran, maybe I can give you floor for your final question.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about adoption, I was just thinking, since you are now winners of this award and it's very prestigious, anything change in your organization in terms of people looking into your work, valuing your work, how they anticipate your work in the organizations in terms of change management?
I mean, I still have the teasing of, the Melanie Charlton award winner a change and things like that. So, whilst it's really kind-wording and it's all sort of fun, actually that really does help go. I think that does allow that focus because people sort of did win that award, and I did win it, but I won it on behalf of the 160 people and our business area for them. So actually, I think yes, it has brought just a sort of renewed sense of good stuff in this change. Well, it's won an award. As I said, it's not about me winning it, but the actual management has won it. So I think it's brought it more to the fore of change management here, but it clearly does have a value even more than we thought. So I'm happy for the teasing, but it does have the conversation refocused.
Great, happy to hear that.
I would agree as well in terms of sort of promoting ourselves externally as a forward-thinking, transformative organisation. So yeah, it's just really beneficial at honestly, for in terms of like confidence, as I say, the process and even just the application process, whether you're shortlisted or not, is such a valuable thing to do. So yeah, I would say it definitely did have definitely so much benefits and impact, and got people maybe interested in our work and curious about what it was for, and the individual case study. So yeah, I would say it was just really such a valuable exercise.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I agree with Sarah. I work alongside her, obviously, in the same team, so it's yeah, it's been really valuable, and would encourage anybody else to get involved in the Change Awards as well. It was a really useful thing to do, and I think since we've done the Change Awards as well, we've really been kind of tasked as a team to really lead the review of the change framework within our own area as well. So it's been really interesting, and it's been good.
May I ask a question then to the winners as well? Just a side question, really, which is a funny question if you think about it. So the question is, what is your superpower? You are the change managers. What is your superpower? How would you define it? Difficult, right? We've got Dig Vijay. He's writing that we've got empathy, we've got resilience. That's Jaren's comments. What is our superpower?
I would agree, actually. I think it's empathy, in the sense that you understand and have an idea of how these changes affect people. And if you don't have that, you're not going to have the right interventions or approaches. So it really is understanding how these changes will impact teams and business, and really understanding how best to communicate and upskilling, the things that make people tick. Why are people resistant? Is it because they don't feel they've got the skills for a new system or a new process? Just knowing the right questions to ask. And I definitely think it is empathy. If you've been through like myself, I've been through several change programs, some not in my current profession, some good and some not so pleasant. So I kind of understand the concerns and reasons for resistance sometimes, and I think that in itself is a really huge benefit, and probably how we came up with the approach of just like absolute honesty when it came to timetabling, because that's what we knew you would want to have. You know, if you're trying to be inspired to take on new processes or just change the way the way that you work, then you need to know the logic in it, or the reasons for doing it. So I would say I'll hang my hat on the empathy one has been probably the main one.
I'll go for a in the theme of superpowers, or I'll coin it like a shapeshifter, so adaptability, and trying and actually making sure that, although as you say, there is a need for us to have frameworks and things that we follow in that process, but actually everything is different, and all of the people that you deal with are different. And as somebody that's really driving change and that champion for change, you need to get people on side, and that really means adapting your approach, adapting your own thinking, challenging yourself, and also almost every change that I've been involved in is different. We're not chasing the same things or delivering the same things, and so being aware of all of the things that you've learned from before, but be willing to do it differently and really think about things each time. So yeah, adaptability would be for me.
For me, it would be excitability. I think in as much, very enthusiastic, very passionate about, making things better, and then helping to sort of really craft that vision for people to really, we sort of say, get on the bus. and sometimes you have to get on the bus, and said that the change is coming. We need to do that, but really making the bus attractive, making why it will be better for people, what the benefits it brings to individuals. So I think that passion, commitment for things are going to be different, have really worked together to make it solve difference and an improved future. Be for mine.
Thank you very much. That was really informative. Thank you kindly. Sharon, Emin, are there any questions, any additional questions, final questions you wanted to ask, or are we run out of ideas?
It was a great pleasure. It was a very, very useful conversation and a fruitful one. I just want to thank all of you and all of our winners. It was great for me to participate in such an environment. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, for me as well. Yeah, I feel really fulfilled and like it was a rich conversation, sharing the obstacles and what we are going through. They are also in our everyday life. We are going through the same things. So sharing the same things in different parts of the world makes us valued and understand. I mean, I feel like like someone is understanding me on the other side of the world. So that's very good for me. Like I felt really happy to be a part of this.
Yes, that awareness always helps. And final questions from the audience. Does anybody have any questions that they wanted to ask us? We've got about 20 people on the call. Anybody has any final questions? You can unmute yourself and ask a question directly to the winners.
May I ask a question?
Please. Absolutely.
Just of the panelists really and those organizations, I'd really appreciate, as somebody who's really wants to get into doing more change management and sort of learn more as well, how would you, or is there any advice you would give to people who are trying to get into change management roles really? What sort of qualities do you look for in those people?
I think you mentioned, on you go.
For me, Joy, I think it's very much that engagement, that passion for people. If we can have people that are, really good at stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement, that's a real starter. All the methodologies and the frameworks that we use are all teachable. The one thing I want from people is that they have enjoyed working with people and like people.
I would have said a similar thing, and also just really that kind of passion for change. I think as well, Joy, you mentioned that I think you're a project program manager earlier on, and so you've got lots of experience within that project space. And so I think there's loads of really good resources out there and really good things that you can actually help that with change becoming a more recognised profession. It means that there are loads of really good things out there. So there's like the Change Management Institute, which is a community of a community of kind of professionals that come together just on change. There's lots of other resources. There's some fab people that have been involved in the Change Awards. I've got loads of the books, things that are really really interesting to get in. So I think if there's lots of stuff out there if you are interested as well.
I think that passion for continuous learning in change management, because I think that change management as a profession is continuously evolving. So we need to be able to, we should be able to. So a good change manager should want to develop themselves and their knowledge and skills around change. But that's just my observation. All right. Any final questions? All right, in that case, the session is closed, everybody. Thank you kindly. Just a final few words from me. Genuinely, it was phenomenal to be participating in this conversation. When you see both sessions, the one on public and the private sector, you will see the differences in approach to change. I think it's interestingly a little bit visible. What I wanted to also say from the change management, sorry, from the change awards perspective, actually, let me try to share my screen again with you. Bear with me. Is it allowing me to share? It is. Just a final slide to let everybody know about the key dates for the Change Awards 2025. So this month we are finalizing the part of the website where all of the applications are going to be available. So they will be available to view and start working on from the 1st of November. So you'll be able to view the form, download the form, start filling it in, pause it. We're using technology now that is going to allow us to be more flexible, and hopefully it'll make things easier for you. You can still visit our website and download all of the questions, sorry, not all of the questions, all of the categories, along with some of the descriptions and what judges are looking for. But from the 1st of November, you can start applying. However, the applications are formally open between the 1st and 31st of January. And then the 13th of March penciled in for the shortlist ceremony, and the 10th of April for the big global ceremony, which is going to take place in London. And I genuinely hope that you are going to share the positive message, and many of you are going to participate. If not yourselves, maybe at least you will be able to encourage other colleagues to participate.